Okay, this video is Where Have the Artists Gone? And one of the viewers had pointed out to me that the art in Zelda, Breath of the Wild, reminded them of the painting by Caspar David Friedrich, Wander Above the Sea Fog. Beautiful painting. It's called a Rückenflügel when the back of the person is towards you, so it brings the viewer into the painting as if you're looking out over, the mountains, the rocks down at the sea fog. And so here's Zelda, Breath of the Wild by Takumi Wada. And so I'm going to explain a little bit why have, very good artists gone to designing video games and things like that. And the reason is because they're not welcome in the public sphere. Also, there was a lot of great, and because they can make money doing, video games, they can make money doing comics. When I was a young guy in my teens, I used to love reading Conan the Barbarian. It made me feel tougher when I would go out and wrestle. I loved all the Bruce Lee, Conan the Barbarian, all the... Okay, here is Frank Frazetta, a fantasy artist, and he's got magnificent talent, but in my opinion, I'm not a fan of fantasy art because to me it's ultimately meaningless. There's no story that I would want to go back to. There's no history behind it. There's no deeper significance. Just, a hot chick and good-looking guy against some monsters, okay? It's pointless, okay? And then here's Boris Vallejo, and you could say, well, gee, isn't that, magnificent talent to be able to draw this, just a hot chick on a flying horse, Pegasus, okay? But it's meaningless. I mean, you don't want to go back to it because there's nothing there. There's no, Ayn Rand had said, art is a concretization of values, of metaphysics. And if there's no point in it, then why go back to it? You go, gee, he's got talent. Okay, great. But he, I'm sure he knew that when he paints this sort of stuff, he can get money, either painting scenes from a movie or for a comic book or something like that. Okay, now here's one for a children's storybook. This is by a guy named James Gurney, and you can see he's got magnificent talent. It's a beautiful painting, Dinotopia, walking on dinosaurs, riding dinosaurs like horses, and again, tremendous amount of skill, but I feel the same way as I did about that other fantasy art. It's ultimately meaningless. I don't want to go back to it. There's no story, there's no significance. It's beautiful in its own way, but a little bit of in a crazy way, riding dinosaurs, okay. Sure, I'll enjoy the moment, but I don't see a point in it. Okay, now here's what's happening with art. You got magnificent things here like the cathedral in St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, but then they'll put in front of all the buildings where the public money goes. They're going to put stuff into like a statue, which is really just a turd. That's an insult. Tom Wolfe, the American writer, had said every modern office building looks like animal cages and has a statue of a turd in front. And that's where art is in our society. You go to Florence during the Renaissance in Italy, and there was always going to be a picture of something, from Christianity, from the Bible. You could relate to it, had ongoing significance and meaning. This is just an insult. This is a disgrace. This is gaslighting of the public, People should complain about it. People should speak about it, because if you don't speak about it, like here is the Rotterdam Museum in Netherlands of Modern Art. This stuff should not be in the museum. This is my point. The museums and the public spaces are filled up with this phony garbage that is an insult to mankind, an insult to humanity, and an insult to Christianity. People should complain about it, speak up about it. It's degrading. It's an insult. Again, imagine one of the artists from the Renaissance came here and visited the modern Europe, modern America. They would say, what is wrong with you people? Are you retarded? Are you sick in the head? Are you degenerate scumbags? You allow this to be in your museums, and some slick talking scumbag BS artist tells you that that's art? That's a turd. This is a disgrace. You people are despicable. They wouldn't go for it, okay? Why do we allow this, okay? People have been conditioned through the public schools to put up with this. And then also we were supposed to pretend that Picasso was an artist. This is a piece of crap. A child could have done this. Picasso stinks, okay? Picasso was well known to be a member of the Communist Party, okay? He was a scumbag. The more you read about Picasso, go read about his life. The more you learn about him, the more you will hate him. He was a piece of crap scumbag, okay? And then look at George Orwell's quote. He said, the heresy of heresies was common sense. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final and most essential command. And yet, Winston, he was right. They were wrong, and he was right. The obvious, the silly, the true had got to be defended. Truisms are true. Hold on to that. Stones are hard. Water is wet. Objects unsupported fall towards the earth's center. With that feeling that he was setting forth an important axiom, he wrote, "Freedom is the freedom to say 2 plus 2 makes 4. When that is granted, all else follows." Yeah, Plato had said it, years back with the ancient Greeks. No one is more hated than he who tells the truth. So what I'm saying is, society should reject this type of stuff. It's offensive. It really is. And if you don't think it's offensive, then you're being groomed for slavery. Look at the kind of junk that's in these modern art museums. This guy takes a urinal and now he puts it on display in a modern museum. That's called art? People should reject that. That's not funny. It's a big insult. Another spot where some of these artists from the current times have gone is, illustrating books. And it's nice that he's illustrating a book like this, Goldilocks and Scott Gustafson. He's the best of the artists for the modern fairy tales. He's illustrated a whole bunch of other ones. That's a good thing for them to do. I don't know how much money they're able to get for that, but that's a good thing for them to be doing. That is connected to society. You will go back to that. That has meaning. The Goldilocks golden mean, that means something. Okay, some artists have gone into painting nature, like Robert Bateman. He's the best in the world, but it's probably hard for other artists to make money doing that. Bateman's so great that he's able to sort of break through the noise, but for most artists, it's going to be difficult. Look how magnificent that painting is. It looks like a photo, but it's better than a photo. Here's what some other artists have done is they've become historical artists. And this one is Don Troiani, painting stuff from the 1776 days. He also painted stuff from the Civil War and the more current era. He's obviously a magnificent artist. And that's a good thing, too. I don't know how much money he can make doing that, but it's great that he makes those books. And there's a whole bunch of books he's illustrated. And there's other illustrators who've done something similar. Mort Kunstler did a whole bunch of stuff. The Wild West, 1776 founding of the nation, and also he did a lot of stuff with regard to the Civil War, and that's great. I own all these books, and I love all these art books. I was very into collecting art books. Some of the modern artists have been able to connect their paintings to current events, maybe try to show them on the internet. Maybe he has a book. This is John McNaughton. He's the best of the current artists at this sort of thing. And it's, Christ brings peace, and that's the truth. That's the only thing that's going to bring worldwide peace, which is one of the reasons why the super rich don't like it, because they don't want peace. They make a lot of money off the lack of peace, okay? But it's the only thing that's going to make people be nice to each other and get along and accept each other. Pretty obvious. That's why they don't want it. And I like this painting here called Via Dolorosa, the painful way of Christ. And as he stumbles with the cross on his shoulder, it kind of calls you into the painting, like this guy here in a suit. Will you help to carry the cross? Okay, and it's a little bit like a Roman Clef novel, whereby a bunch of characters from real life are brought into the story. Except in a Roman Clef, they're kind of kept partially secret, if you will, whereas here they're obvious. So there's Stalin, there's Napoleon, there's Lenin, there's Mother Teresa. There's a whole bunch of other famous figures. There's Martin Luther. So anyways, it's a beautiful painting. I think that might be the last one. So it's hard on the artists, and I wish they were in the museums and in the public squares. Why not see magnificent paintings when you walk into a building? Why not see a magnificent statue like a Michelangelo in front of a building? Why doesn't the public call for that? So anyways, thought that was interesting.